Okay. Welcome to the second Irish National Caucus Zoom meeting with our guest from Belfast, Raymond McCORD Sr. I am Barbara Flaherty, the Executive Vice President of the Irish National Caucus and a judge of the World Peace Prize. Also joining us is Father Sean McManus, President of the Irish National Caucus and Chief Judge of the World Peace Prize. Raymond is the most prominent victims campaigner in Northern Ireland and in the Republic of Ireland, and is the leading campaigner against the British government's Amnesty. In fact, recently he founded the Truth and Justice Meeting, which is a cross-community group of victims campaigners, Protestant and Catholic. The Irish National Caucus has worked closely with Raymond since 2009. We brought him to Washington, D.C. 3 times to get him a congressional hearing into the murder of his son, Raymond Jr., who on November 9, 1997 was killed by a Protestant military organization, and there has not been an inquest into Raymond Jr.'s murder. Father McManus, will you please now lead the discussion?
Thank you, Barbara. Welcome back, Raymond. Nice to see you again. So Raymond, you and your team have done marvelous work in opposing the latest British government amnesty plans. And as Barbara mentioned, of course, long before that, you were the most prominent campaigner for justice for victims, because the British government covered up the murder of your son back on November 9th, 1997. And today, you're the most prominent campaigner against the British government proposals. Now, of course, the British plan of amnesty applies not just to British soldiers, but to the IRA and to Protestant paramilitaries. But come on, everybody in the world, and especially in Northern Ireland, Protestant and Catholics, know that the plan is all about protecting British soldiers and their political bosses who's ordered them to commit war crimes and collusion in Northern Ireland. Nobody really doubts that. It's on one thing I think Protestants and Catholics in Northern Ireland can agree. Now, I have to say that I wasn't the slightest surprised by the latest British plan. This latest act of British bad faith. I usually use the term England because I don't want to really be seen to be blaming Wales, despite Lloyd George, or Scotland, despite Lord Balfour. However, I think it's important for us to know that in Ireland, North and South, Raymond has put together an extraordinary coalition of people, for the first time maybe, who are all in agreement and all supporting his campaign and that of his colleagues. So Raymond, to fill in our audience, let me mention a few things about what we've been doing here on Capitol Hill with members of Congress. We have briefed in person or on the phone or through our regular Irish congressional briefings and email blasts. We have briefed many members of Congress, and all our blasts, as you know, and all our briefings, we quote your good self and what you are doing. So to date, 36 members of Congress signed a letter to Boris Johnson strongly protesting the British government plan for amnesty. And in our briefings, we also quoted not just Raymond McCORD, but another famous man, President de Gaulle of France. And notice that he too uses the term England in this quote, as I do. Quote, "For England, there is no alliance which holds, no treaty which is respected, no truth which matters." And I think people in Northern Ireland today are all saying, well, amen to that, because it's hard to disagree with de Gaulle in what he's saying there. The amnesty plans by England are in effect part and parcel of England's continuous and historic cover-up of murder and collusion on the island of Ireland. Indeed, this amnesty plan is state collusion in plain sight, not done in secret, not done through the intelligence agencies, the MI5 or MI6 or all the other bodies involved in secret activity there. It is done by the Prime Minister of England and probably will be passed, unless it can be stopped, by the House of Commons, and probably get, as all bills have to get, the assent of the monarch. So this is, instead of being a secret collusion, this is the ultimate official, formal, public collusion. England cares so little about Catholics and Protestants and the death of those people, and so little about the victims' families, that as long as their soldier and political masters are protected, they will dispense amnesty at will to everyone for everything. They'll dispense it like giving out candy. No problem, no compunction. Get rid of the paddy problem, because at the end of the day, to London, whether you are a Catholic or a Protestant in Northern Ireland, you are really a paddy, and we all know that. And this is especially true at this very moment when Brexit and its with Brexit and its upsurge of English nationalism. You know how Boris Johnson famously said, "Get Brexit done," meaning be done with the European Union. Now he's saying, "Get amnesty done," which sounds almost like be done with Northern Ireland. And I think in part, that is also a reason why Protestants and Catholics are so offended by these latest plans. So, Raymond, that fills in the audience a little bit about our work here. Now we'll turn it over to you. First of all, before discussing with us the amnesty plans, tell us a little bit about your dear son who was murdered.
Son Raymond was murdered on the 9th of November 1997 in North Belfast. The UVF murdered him on the orders of a special branch informant whose name was well documented. It's been in the news, in TV, he's in prison now, Mark Haddock. The murder was carried out by a man who was released from prison on a Friday on weekend parole and murdered my son on Saturday, along with other members of the UVF. From it, nothing's been done. In 2007, a report came out into my son's murder by the police ombudsman for Northern Ireland, Nuala Alone, who's now sits in the House of Lords. In it, The first time in the Troubles, collusion was proven, and the British government accepted it. Now, even though they accepted it, 14 and a half years after the report, not one police officer has been arrested in relating to it. Haddock's handlers, special branch, covered him up, and every member of the murder team was working for the state. During that time, it showed in the police ombudsman's report that Mark Haddock had received at least £80,000 while he was involved in murders, kneecapping, shootings, robbery, and from it, it's been revealed they believe he's been involved in at least 20 murders. He's never been convicted of any murder. The police, in fact, when he carried out his first murder, was against a young Roman Catholic girl, Sharon McKenna, in 1993. He went down there. She was working as like a home help, a carer for a Protestant man. I know the family, and Haddock and two others went and murdered her. He blasted her with a shotgun twice, the head and body. The next day, he met his handlers and he confessed to the murder. He cried in the car. It was his first killing. His handlers at the time were CID. They went to their bosses in the police, senior police officers, who told them they couldn't be arrested. He was no use to them in jail. And the irony of this too, Sean, is when the report came out, the man that Haddock named as his backup gunman in '93 was also the man that murdered my son 4 years later. And also it came out in the report that the backup gunman was also a special branch agent. The police went to the prison to question him when he went back to the prison, and the authorities wouldn't let the police into the prison to arrest this man and question him. It's the only time it's happened in the Troubles. And through it, instead of going after the UVF, the authorities have done everything in their power to stop me investigating it, revealing the dark secrets of the state and the UVF. And bear in mind, the overall chief of staff of the UVF, it's also an agent, but he works for hired people. He works for the intelligence services. He works for MI5. This man who directed terrorism, the likes of Logan Island, the murders that they carried out, not just in Catholics but in Protestants. This man, the chief of staff, has been immune from prosecution. During a period of time from Raymond's murder, there's been numerous attempts on my life. They've tried to kill me with a car bomb. They've tried to shoot me. They've tried to kidnap me. They've done 3 poster campaigns against me. In all the years of the Troubles, the UVF never conducted a poster campaign against any Republican. They've done everything that they can in their power to make me go away without killing me, and there's been many attempts. UVF held a meeting after Raymond's murder in Belfast, several years after. The chief of staff, unlike him, conducted the meeting. He was in charge in the Shankill Road. He told all their active service unit who were gathered that day, at the first opportunity they were to kill me. They didn't have to come back. They asked for it to be sanctioned. 2 of the people who were at that meeting contacted me about a year later because I'd helped one of their sisters get rehoused and some of her family, because UVF had attacked her home. I didn't know the connection. I just knew her by her maiden name, her sister-in-law, sorry. And the guy decided if I've done that for his sister-in-law, he thought it was right. He should warn me that the whole organisation has been ordered to kill me. On top of that, on 3 occasions, they smashed young Raymond's headstone. And one of the times at the headstone, they left a mass card after smashing the headstone with my late mother's name. She was in her 70s. The two other sons' names, one was only 14, and myself, and it says they're going to kill us all. I took the card to the police station, and for them to test it for fingerprints, etc. I rang in an hour and said there was no fingerprints. Thanks to a senior police officer, strange enough, he was a Catholic police officer, a very senior police officer. He found out it was in the station. He asked the officer to bring me up, and he asked him how the card could be tested, because at that time the techniques would take 3 days. I didn't know anything about DNA forensic analysis here. Told me to take a card away. The police were even covering up the headstone being smashed. On another occasion, the headstone was smashed. I wanted to make a complaint. I spoke with a detective sergeant, the lady, she was, give her the names of the ones who would have carried it out and who ordered it. And she said I couldn't prove it. And it said the leader was a senior member of the UDF. He was a branch informant, special branch informant. I left and went and picked my young lad up to take him to football. But he took him, but he didn't want to play because what he had seen, what happened to Headstone. The police came and arrested me. It was the son's headstone and smashed to bits. And the reason they arrested me, the detective made a false statement and said to her, I'm supposed to have told her that I'm going to the man's house, the boss of the UDF, and I would shoot him. So what she was saying, I'm sitting in a room in a police station, I threatened to shoot him on, and they let me leave. You know, this has been constant for 24 years next week. The police have no intention of prosecuting him. They've stopped the inquest, and only yesterday in court they informed us, the police barrister, after almost 24 years with no inquest, no one charged anything, that the chief constable would be seeking a PII certificate, public interest immunity certificate, so we won't receive the papers that the judge ordered the police to give us in relating to Raymond's murder, and they're relating to what an informer had told them at his debriefing. Now, they're saying it's in the public interest not to know. We're saying it's the public interest. They must know what the state was doing. On top of that, spoke yesterday of bringing out what you call a Section 6 case. In essence, it's a secret court where two specially appointed advocates, you call them attorneys, but high ranking, they go into the court, sit with a judge, and they decide what I can see and can't see. That's the justice system, what the state is imposing on victims. Now, one point I want to make strongly, the Irish American, and I'm from a UNIS community, and use your term, Sean, and you're right, 100% right. This party isn't going away, no matter what Boris Johnson says. I can assure them that this party from the UNIS community didn't go to London to protest 3 times at Downing Street in Parliament to lose the Prime Minister who doesn't care about any victims. Whether it be Northern Ireland, in Dublin, the Republic of Ireland, or the bombings in Birmingham and London, he doesn't care. His interest is, first of all, he's putting it across in Parliament to cover up for the soldiers and amnesty for soldiers. What in essence he really is trying to do, but this is about Sean, and to say the Irish American, all Americans, this is to stop the world knowing the involvement in the British government with terrorist organisations in their pay, agents in their pay, murdering thousands of people. This is to stop the government being held accountable by the courts of due process, what happens in any democratic country. Johnson has it in his head, he's going to bring this through. I'm saying to Boris Johnson, you won't bring this through. We have now, through our group, the Truth and Justice Movement, which I was able to put together inside of several weeks, we've got every political party, major political party on the island of Ireland, and every major political party in the UK, with the exception of the Tories, the Conservatives, supporting our group and saying a declaration of the document that was able to draft up that they're all rejecting these proposals. On top of that, I've got the biggest union in Northern Ireland, NIPSA, on board. At a meeting on the 29th this month in Queen's University, our group, there's 9 in it, cross community, and they'll be speaking to an audience. NIPSA presently sitting on it with politicians from both sides of the border. Mark Daly, the Speaker in the Irish Senate, will represent the people from Dublin. Colm Eastwood will be sitting on it with Stephen Farry. I've actually tried to, Sean, I can say now, I don't know what, get in touch with this one is difficult. I'm trying to get in touch with the former Lord Chief Justice, Declan Morgan, to sit on the panel, and I'll also approach Nuala Alone, who was the ombudsman who revealed the collusion of the state with terrorists. Now, each day for the families. At the start of when we formed the group, we went to London, and the protesters there, some from Birmingham, and a Celtic man whose father was in the RUC years ago, and loyalists and a special branch officer shot him, Sergeant Joe Campbell. His son went to live in England, and he's joined our group. Now, the people in England, when we arrived, I brought Billy McManus with me. His father was murdered in Sean Graham's bookies, and they believed then that it was a token gesture of protest. They're finding out now, the British government, the British media, civil servants and the security agencies, right to MI5 and Downing Street, that this group of paddies won't be going away. We're going to fight them. And with the support of Irish America, we'll beat them. And I want to say this, Sean, and people talk about patronising. I wouldn't be sitting here speaking of what's happened to murder my son and thousands of other people without yourself and the Irish National Caucus. And I want to tell Irish America that I'm not a person who patronises and butters people up. I call a spade, and people know it in Belfast. And I can't thank the Irish National Caucus enough for the support and the times that brought me over to tell them a story about my son's murder and other victims.
Well, thank you very much, Raymond. Father McManus, would you like to have the concluding statement?
Yes, that was very powerful, Raymond, as always. I'm astonished, even though I understand what's happening here, but I am astonished by the hostility that is shown to you still apparently by the police. You're partisan from a unionist community, and yet there's this animus towards you, which is deeply troubling. So, for example, I'm not aware that the Collusion family have ever complained about constant harassment by the police or others, in fairness to the police. They seem to treat them fairly well. They're not cooperating fully, of course, but one doesn't hear about endless type of negative, vindictive opposition and hostility. Do you understand? Can you explain ultimately what you think that's about?
Very simple. And it's funny, in the last 48 hours, I've come into possession of documents, and they're legal. It was during UVF Super cross trial a few years ago, and a High Court judge made the remarks, and in the what he actually stated through the informant Gary Haggerty, who was involved in Haddock's team. He was Joint Commander Mount Vernon. That Haggerty had passed information. The judge is saying that's not me, and it's a High Court judge saying, give information in which could have prevented my son's murder, along with two other Protestants and a Catholic lad, Jared Brady. The police didn't stop these murders, even though they had the information beforehand. They played God with my son's life and let him be murdered. On top of that, on another page in the draft, judge summing up, it states Haggerty admitted that he was going to attack my house, and I live 6 doors from the police station with my 14-year-old son. The police didn't warn me. So they were playing God then with my life and my 14-year-old son. The harassment towards me over 24 years is because the police believed, and the state more so believed, they can get away with allowing my son to be murdered by state agents. It's in any other country, in Europe, America, these people would have been charged, and the police officers, we've seen what's happened in America when people have been shot in the protests last year. Police officers charged right away. In Northern Ireland, you know, the state has known when some atrocities were going to take place. They also knew when people were going to be murdered. And they allowed it to happen. Their attitude is, you know, we've seen it again today, Sean. The chief constable reached out to loyalists who were ratting the other night in the Shankill. And he says he wants to engage with loyalists. The definition of loyalists would be in Belfast, paramilitaries, loyalist paramilitaries, not ordinary unionist people.
Excuse me, Raymond, our time is now up. Thank you very much. Thank you, Father Sean.
Thank you.